We're at another milestone again. So we're going to elect a national chief.
Tonight, countdown to the election of a new national chief at the Special Chiefs Assembly in Ottawa.
It has affected our food costs.
A late freeze has residents of an NWT community worried.
You can help with your time, which is probably the most precious way that you can help by volunteering to our meals.
And an Edmonton shelter is opening up their doors for some holiday cheer. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Ottawa tonight, where the Assembly of First Nations kicked off its Special Chiefs Assembly this morning. This assembly will see the election of a new national chief, made necessary after Roseanne Archibald was officially ousted from the position in July. Fraser Needham is at the assembly and has this story.
Unity, collaboration, and stability. These are the themes of this AFN assembly. Dylan Whiteduck is co-chief of this year's meeting.
To our next national chief, there's 6 running. I implore the values of unity, humility, and workmanship. These are the pillars upon which we can build a stronger and more inclusive future for all First Nations and the Assembly of First Nations.
This is in stark contrast to the 2 years of turmoil the organization went through under Archibald's leadership, which was marked by internal fighting on the executive and staff allegations of harassment against the former national chief. AFN Regional Chief for Ontario, Glenn Hare, echoed the need for the organization to move forward in harmony, regardless of who is elected on Wednesday.
We're at another milestone again. So we're going to elect a national chief. And as my co-chief that opened, yes, unity.
Joanna Bernard has served as interim national chief for the past 6 months. She told delegates she has worked hard to establish zero-tolerance policies for harassment, both in the AFN workplace and at assemblies.
We successfully updated the AFN whistleblower policy, code of conduct, and harassment reporting mechanisms. There is still a lot of work to do, but we've started and we're well on our way. We also established a code of conduct to ensure safety and respect for all attendees, which is evident as you look around the venue.
As part of these new policies, all assembly attendees are required to sign a form that says they will abide by the AFN's Code of Conduct rules. Voting for a new national chief begins Wednesday morning. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, reporting from the AFN Special Chiefs Assembly, Ottawa.
Thanks, Fraser. For more on the AFN election and assembly, we're joined by Russ Dabo. He's a longtime critic of the AFN and a former candidate for national chief, and was working for former national chief Roseanne Archibald when she was ousted earlier this year. Russ, good to see you. Thanks for taking some time for us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get going, we're going to run some of your concession speech from 2018 when you ran for national chief of the AFN.
Okay. This organization is basically controlled by the Trudeau government. And I'm saying to the people who are watching, it's really up to you now, because it's clear that this organization is not going to reform itself. It's going to have to happen from the outside. And I'm not going anywhere, so I'm going to be working to help reform the organization, and also still stopping the Trudeau legislation in a different role, but I still intend to fight to do that.
Russ, again there, your concession speech from when you ran for AFN National Chief. You didn't have a lot of faith in the AFN then, although you did previously work for National Chief Roseanne Archibald. Have your thoughts on the organization changed at all?
No, if anything, what I said in 2018 has come to pass. We've seen the Trudeau government pass legislation through the AFN Canada bilateral agreement that sets up what they call this bilateral mechanism, this committee, this process. They passed the Indigenous Languages Act, the Indigenous Child and Family Services Act. They passed Bill C-97, which dissolved the Department of Indian Affairs and created the two new departments, the Indigenous Services Canada and Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada. And the United Nations Declaration Act, Bill C-15, which I was publicly opposing. But that's gone ahead and passed, and now there's an action plan. So, you know, First Nation peoples have three things to deal with. They have the UN Declaration itself, the UN Declaration Act, which has flaws in it, it's in the act itself, and now this action plan. So there's three moving parts now to the Trudeau government saying they're implementing the UN Declaration.
Russ, you know, turning ahead to this election, what are your thoughts on the 6 candidates that are running, and do you see any front runners?
I think probably the front runners are probably Cindy Woodhouse and Dean Sayers. And the way that the AFN elections have gone since 1985 under the AFN charter, the BC chiefs have a large block with, you know, like 200 potential votes. They're not running a candidate this time, so they'll have to decide basically who they're going to be the kingmakers for, right? Mm-hmm.
So no matter who's elected, I guess, Russ, who do you see or what do you see as the tasks and the challenges ahead for the next national chief?
Well, you know, whoever wins the AFN election is going to have to deal with the problems with that AFN Canada bilateral process, because that's the process that's managing regional and national issues across Canada. And all of the resolutions I've seen before this assembly, I think there's like 90 resolutions. A lot of them have to do with program and service issues and additional funding, all of which will be put to the senior officials table, made up of the AFN directors on one side and the associate deputy ministers and director generals of the departments of Crown Indigenous Relations and Indigenous Services Canada and the Department of Justice. And then they'll kick it up, if it's a political decision, they'll kick it up to the political leaders between the AFN Executive Committee, the National Chief, and the ministers, and ultimately the Prime Minister. That's the structure they put in place. So, you know, really it's the federal government that's managing and controlling that process. And of course the funding. So there was problems with that. National Chief Archibald was trying to renegotiate that agreement through a Healing Path Forward Accord, but the chiefs didn't support that, and the executive didn't support that. But problems with that process still remain, and they haven't been addressed.
Well, Russ, it will be a couple of interesting days here. I'm sure you'll be watching as closely as us. Appreciate you sharing some of your insight with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, you can watch the AFN Assembly unfold live by visiting our APTN News YouTube page, where we will be streaming the events this week. We'd also like to hear your thoughts on the Assembly and the election of a new national chief, or anything else you'd like to reach out about. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. You can follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. In other news, band councils of Anishnabe communities in northwestern Quebec are looking to get their share of lithium mining on their territory. It's been a few months since Sayona Mining took over a major lithium project in northwestern Quebec. It's an Australian company that plans to extract and refine lithium. It wants to do it on the traditional territory of Anishinaabe communities of Lac-Simon and Picogan. But Chief Lucien Wabanuk of Lac-Simon says that this company still hasn't received consent from Anishnabe in the region. Sayona also hasn't agreed to share the economic gains with the communities, even after 2 years of negotiations. Wabananock virtually participated in Sayona's annual General Assembly on Thursday to remind the company and its shareholders to respect Indigenous rights.
Nous, on a dû utiliser le chat là, pour lancer nos messages. On a quand même lancé 2-3 messages principaux, notamment celui que s'il n'y a pas de consentement de nos 2 communautés, Lac-Simon et Picagan, il n'y aura pas de projet avec Sayona dans le territoire de nos 2 communautés. Territoire non cédé en passant.
To the East Coast now, and a first for Atlantic Canada. A new inland shipping terminal is coming to Nova Scotia. It aims to reduce the number of transport trucks in downtown Halifax, while one of its partners is the Millbrook Mi'kmaq Nation. The new partnership was announced at the Halifax waterfront between Millbrook and a transportation logistics company, Canadian Rail Equipment Works and Services. The inland shipping terminal is called Wegobawgwik, which means end of the water's flow. Millbrook will house the $100 million operation, which is expected to create 300 jobs. Construction is expected to begin next year. Claire Marshall says the project will benefit everyone.
We really also want to ensure that contracting and employment opportunities are available for the whole broader region, Colchester County and Truro as well. So this is something that we'll be really putting strong emphasis on, is employment training and contracting opportunities.
It's that time of year where provincial legislatures wind down for the holiday season, and a new study from the Angus Reid Institute is revealing Canadians' opinions on their provincial premiers. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew is leading the pack with an approval rating of 57%. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe is second with 54%. Newfoundland Premier Andrew Furey and Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston are tied at 48%. They're followed by Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and BC Premier David Eby. Ontario Premier Doug Ford and New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs. And in last place is Quebec Premier Francois Legault, who suffered a 16% drop in approval ratings this year. Time now for a quick break, but still to come. An emergency shelter in Edmonton is trying to spread the Christmas cheer.
A time to just show the dignity and respect and bring the joy of Christmas to the community members that come through our doors.
Welcome back. Residents in the Dene Métis community of Kliklikwe, Fort Simpson, are anxiously awaiting to cross the Liard River. Due to a late freeze and low water levels, the ice crossing to and from the regional hub has been delayed. The 1,100-person village is relied upon by the smaller communities around the region. In the summer months, residents rely on a ferry, but with low water levels some years, that service ends early. This season, travel has been restricted. A 5-minute helicopter ride across the river will cost you over $500 and just as much as a scheduled flight to Yellowknife. For years, leaders and community members have been calling for a bridge to provide year-round access. But until that happens, the isolation has dire consequences for businesses, fuel supplies, cost of living, recreational opportunities, and mental health.
It has affected our food costs. I now hear people in the community are worried about propane for their homes because it's getting low. The talks need to start, and I'm surprised they haven't started before when this community flooded 2 years ago. And, you know, how are you going to, you know, if there's a worst catastrophe, we're talking about forest fires now, how are we going to get people out in a timely manner?
Still in the north, the Council of Yukon First Nations is one step closer in making an Indigenous healing centre a reality in the territory. The organization signed a letter of intent on the centre with the federal and territorial governments in Ottawa on Monday. The building will include 6 beds for those needing immediate care for issues like substance use. It will also include 20 beds for longer-term stays. Grand Chief Peter Johnston says the centre will help alleviate pressure on Whitehorse's downtown emergency shelter.
You know, the commitment from government, the long term to help not only finance this, but also to give us the ability to provide a healing center to our own people on behalf of our people, just provides another option, which I think is the most important aspect of this whole conversation.
Hope Mission in Edmonton hosted their first Christmas dinner Monday evening and fed over 500 people who might have otherwise gone hungry. APTN's Chris Stewart was there.
Hope Mission near downtown Edmonton was filled to capacity with their first of 4 Christmas turkey banquets planned for December. Benny Kiza is the Senior Manager of Emergency Shelters and Support Services. APTN News spoke to him moments before doors opened.
There's going to be music. We have St. Nicholas or Santa walking around. So this is just a time to celebrate, a time to just show the dignity and respect and bring the joy of Christmas to the community members that come through our doors.
Funding was provided by longtime Edmonton lawyer James H. Brown in memory of his wife. Rows upon rows of tables and chairs quickly filled up as hungry community members arrived. 60 volunteers were on hand to serve turkey with all the trimmings, including dessert. This is the first of 2 meals tonight. In an hour or so, another group will come in to get their share of the bounty. Kiza says demand has never been so high for their services, which offers housing, counseling, clothing, emergency care, and more.
Since this summer, we've had really high numbers of participants, community members staying overnight. We were talking about in the summer, we're looking at the high 600, 700. We've reached the 800 community member overnight staying in our shelters. It's not winter yet per se, but we've been consistently at 800 people.
Since its inception in 1929, nearly a century ago, they have relied on the kindness of people to help them with what they do. The Christian nonprofit says now, with high demand, they need the generosity of the community.
You can help financially by donating to Hope Mission. You can help with your time, which is probably the most precious way that you can help by volunteering to our meals or reaching out to a volunteer coordinator. You can help by giving a clothing item, because I mean it's going to get really cold really soon. So we're talking about serving hundreds and thousands of people if you look at the months of the winter. So giving out clothing, giving out toques and jackets and hygiene products.
People here will leave with a full belly and maybe a smile on their face. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Thanks, Chris. Time for one last break. Still to come, the push continues for more Indigenous musicians to be heard.
Il faut diffuser parce que l'artiste doit être entendu et reconnu.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. And after a humid and frosty morning in Winnipeg, James Moore sent in this close-up shot of the frosted covered trees. Great shot, James. Very artistic. You can send your photos to share@aptn.ca for your chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, -1 in Halifax, 3 below in Fredericton and Charlottetown. Snow and -6 in Kuujjuaq, -3 with snow in Nain. 8 below with snow in Montreal, sun's out, and 11 below in Val-d'Or. 0 with flurries in Sault Ste. Marie, -7 in North Bay. 0 with snow in Wawa, sunny and +1 in Sioux Lookout. 0 with snow in God's Lake, -1 in Norway House. +4 in Winnipeg, cloudy and 7 above in Dauphin. 4 above for Regina, +3 in Saskatoon. 2 above for Meadow Lake and Buffalo Narrows. Sunny across most of northern Alberta, 0 in Fort Chipewyan, +1 in Fort McMurray. Cloudy and 3 in Edmonton, 13 above for Lethbridge. 12 above and partly cloudy in Vancouver, +9 for Victoria. +1 in Prince George, 5 in Smithers. -18 with snow in Old Crow, 2 below for Whitehorse. -3 in Yellowknife, 20 below in Norman Wells. -15 with snow in Sax Harbor, flurries and 13 in Pawatuck. -6 for Chesterfield and Arviette with snow on the way. -14 and snow in Resolute, 19 below and snow in Joe Haven. Representatives from Macusham Musique, an Innu record label, have proposed an Indigenous music fund to the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, or the CRTC. The Online Streaming Act will make music streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music contribute to funds for musicians. The CRTC held public hearings to help determine how these contributions will be distributed. Nellie Jourdain appeared before the hearing a week ago. She's the director of Macusham Musique, which has proposed the creation of a fund for Indigenous peoples. She says this will help emerging Indigenous artists access funding, and that this proposal is linked to their demand that the CRTC implement a 5% radio broadcast quota for Indigenous music.
Il faut avoir des fonds pour faire de la création. Puis après, ben, il faut diffuser cette création-là. Donc, c'est comme un cercle. Il faut diffuser parce que l'artiste doit être entendu et reconnu partout à la télévision, à la radio, pour que le public vienne à leur spectacle. Tu sais, c'est comme un cercle. L'un ne va pas sans l'autre.
Actress and playwright Darla Contois is our guest on tonight's all-new episode of Face to Face. It's been a big year for Contois, who landed the lead role on the 60 Scoop miniseries Little Bird, which you can watch on APTN and APTN Lumi. She was also recently shortlisted for a prestigious Governor General's Literary Award for her work, The War Being Waged.
I don't think I quite understand what it is to be on this level of recognition quite yet. Like, I get the news and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But I don't exactly understand what it means at the time. And I'm only now learning, like, just how people are responding to it, that it was a really big deal. And I'm really excited and happy about it.
And you can watch our interview with Darla Contois on Face to Face right here in less than 90 seconds. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. You can find much more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. And don't forget to head over to our YouTube page to watch the AFN Special Assembly. I'm Dennis Ward. Miigwech Marcy, thanks for being with us. Have a great night.